odd affectation that also gives you a wormhole to get into what this place was long before you were born. So, and then I worked it into the script of Tripoli Cancelled.
And I guess it is a forest in some ways because it's the books, the trees.
Right. Those books are still there.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So did you have a favourite story growing up?
Oh, I have so many. Actually, Watership Down, which is the book that's referenced in the film, was... it's a favorite, but I read it when I was too young to read it. I read Watership Down when I was still 11 or so. It's really a quite dark book to be reading at that age. So I think it's a favorite book because I had the clear sense that something's wrong with this book, it was much darker than your 11-year-old brain can absorb, and yet your 11-year-old brain is voraciously reading because you're trying to read anything you can get your hands on. So it's a book that stayed with me. And then the other one is actually a comic book, Tintin, Flight 714. For some reason, well, not for some reason, it's obvious. It's a comic book, and it involves planes, and I read it obsessively. So, just a pause. I can hear a little creaking. Is that picking up?
I heard a tiny bit, but not
okay.
massive.
As long as it doesn't
Wasn't
matter.
too bad.
Yeah.
It wasn't. Yeah.
I could hear it, but I wasn't sure if I should. But should I tell them to?
You maybe a little
sounded like it was coming
bit.
from
It sounded
above,
like
but-
yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
We
I
can
don't.
say to them a little bit. You don't
Just
want to
checking.
like hinder
I can
their
check, I can
working
check.
practice.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So are you rolling again?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Okay.
I do give rambly answers.
No, very succinct. It's great. And also, in Watership, the Tripoli Cancelled, the Watership Down scene is a really dark moment in the film. So it's kind of curious how those childish stories resonate.
When I read it again in the airport, because we're trying to choose a sequence, I remember thinking, I cannot believe I read this at age 11. I mean, it has its own cosmology. They have gods. I mean, polytheistic gods, not Christian, not Muslim either. And they have a vengeful god that takes revenge, and then they have, there's a whole system of jealousy and who do you trust and the humans come, or they're always talking about the great menace from somewhere else, but the rabbits are their own enemies. I'm constantly thinking of these things where I read something as a child's book, and then I read it again as an adult. And when I'm reading it the second time, it's something completely different. And I often have this thing of, I cannot believe I read this, that, and what was I thinking? And which part of that is lodged in my brain this many years? I make films as a way of catharsis. I'm not in pain about having read Watership Down, but it's a way of processing. I work on memory, right? So it's a way of processing. I could talk about historical memory. I could talk about the way uber events or grand historical or tragic historical events like the Holocaust or the war that created Bangladesh or the partition of India remembered. That is one way to work. But I think I work with my own memory and the disjuncture between what I remember and how it must have been, because I think that can't be how I remember it. I work on that through my own body and memory in the script. Yeah. Sorry, I went off on a tangent.
Did you enjoy school?
I was an outsider in school. I always felt slightly outside. So I didn't enjoy it that much. I mean, I'm still in school, but this is grown-up graduate studies. But no, I felt an outsider. I suppose I enjoyed parts of it. Nobody's ever asked me that, so that's why I'm just like... That's why I'm trying to think through, did I? If I think back to it, school made me go deeper into my books, not study books, but fiction and everything in the home library, because it didn't feel like my home. So I took refuge in books. Yeah. No.